Israel carries out a raid to arrest terrorist murderers in Nablus, and no one seems to see the justification for this at all. Hamas responds by firing rockets into civilian areas in Israel, all the while hiding behind their own civilians in Gaza. I'm Ben, and this is the Israel Guys. Welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of Jew hatred and anti-Israel propaganda, you should have a direct connection to the land and people of Israel. Guys, if you like this show, click subscribe, little button under the channel. Click it, click the bell next to it. If you do that, these videos will show up in your feed, in your home, in your life. You'll never be able to get rid of us, and that's the way it will be. I'm going to start the show this morning with doing one of my favorite things to do in the whole wide world, and that is go to the place of all things outrage, Twitter, and read a few interesting tweets. So there's a situation going on in Nablus. Has been going on kind of over the last couple of days in Israel. The IDF entered Nablus and did a raid. And I'm just going to read a few tweets and a few bits of a couple articles, and let's kind of see this narrative that's being set up on social media and through a lot of the big media networks. This tweet says, in photos, Israel invaded the Palestinian city of Nablus in broad daylight today, killing 11 Palestinians and injuring over 100 more. Let's take a look at these photos from Al Jazeera. You see in this first one, we have military vehicles in the street, some sort of fire, probably burning tires, it looks like, from the black smoke behind it. Just look at the fruit and the rocks and some of these huge, huge rocks littering the street with all kinds of garbage. And you can see these vehicles. I mean, there's like oranges stuck. I can't see exactly what those are. Some sort of fruit stuck to the grill of this vehicle. Being thrown at it. In this other vehicle, you see these vehicles just covered in paint. Something crazy went on. Let's just say something crazy went on. And some people were killed, sadly. Maybe sadly, we'll find out. A bunch of people were injured. Let's read another one of these tweets here. It says, Israeli soldiers shot into crowds of shoppers and vendors at a busy market. They ran over Palestinians with armored vehicles. Israel massacred Palestinians in one of the city's most bustling neighborhoods. That's the narrative that's being set up. Israel brought military vehicles into Nablus for no reason at all, ran into people, shot people, attacked a busy market. Is it true? Let's find out. This is from Al Jazeera. This video, I'm just going to play this here for you.
We're surrounded, but we won't surrender. This was the last message from Palestinian fighter Hussam.
You see the IDF running in.
He urged Palestinians.
You see some sort of gunfight going on. There's explosions.
In an exchange of fire with Israeli forces. He and another fighter
There's
spent
rubble.
the last hours here, surrounded in this abandoned house in the old city of Nablus, north of the occupied West.
Okay, so what really happened here? Edu Baruch was part of the IDF. He's Jewish. And this last October, he was at a guard post. Let's see, he was at the Ganot interchange near Sebastia. He was guarding some sort of parade, I think, that was happening for Sukkot or close to Sukkot. And Palestinian terrorists and a drive-by drove by and shot him as they were coming by. Premeditated murder. He was injured pretty seriously, but they thought he was going to make it. Stuck him on an ambulance. On the way to the hospital, I believe he ended up dying. The terrorist organization that took credit is called the Lion's Den. Relatively new terrorist organization that's been rearing its ugly head in Israel recently. And so, needless to say, since the terrorist attack happened, the Israeli intelligence has been on this organization trying to track them down, figure out who was responsible, all that kind of thing. Just last week, the intelligence inside of Israel was able to track down some of these terrorist members, and they actually captured 2 of the terrorists responsible for planning this attack. The ISA Also, after that, located three more terrorists. Two of them were members of the Lion's Den, and the third one, it's not clear if he was a member of the Lion's Den or not, but he was. It's looking like he was also a member of the Islamic Jihad movement, a different terrorist organization. And so the ISA located these three terrorists, and they were in a hideout in Nablus. Nablus is a huge city, absolute hornet's nest inside Samaria. And the biblical, the actual Hebrew name for Nablus is Shechem, or the biblical city of Shechem, where Joseph is buried. But today it's called Nablus. It's a huge, huge Palestinian city. And so the ISA located these three terrorists. So a raid was planned with a number of different security organizations inside of Israel, including the military. They go in to take out these terrorists. They go in, they surround the house, and they order the terrorists to surrender, to have a fair trial and to go to prison if convicted. And the terrorists refused to surrender. Instead, they opened fire on the military. And this sparks a gun battle in between the military and the terrorists. And while the gun battle is happening, you see the residents of this hornet's nest in Shechem swarm down on the military and are firing live rounds from all kinds of weaponry, from cars, from motorcycles driving by, hiding behind barriers, throwing Molotov cocktails, the homemade fire bombs, throwing rocks, throwing, who knows what all else. And it turned into a really, really, really chaotic situation. You can see, I'm just going to play this one video from Reuters. This appears to be after the attack happened, some sort of kind of funeral march, I guess, for one of the terrorists that was killed. But this just kind of gives you a little bit of a picture of what the IDF was up against inside of the city. So let's play this here. You can see they have somebody on a stretcher. Look at this. Look at this crowd running through the city. Look at that. And they're firing live rounds in the air in the middle of the city. All these young guys carrying all kinds of weaponry. And you can see that just popping off shots right in the middle. This is the absolute hornet's nest that the military drove into. Obviously, it was a very well-planned raid, probably, but things happen. And the Israeli military responded in kind and took on this firefight with the terrorists, and all three terrorists were killed. The military is saying that one was killed trying to run away from the house, and the other two were killed in the firefight that ensued. According to, I saw on CNN, they're saying that 10 Palestinians were killed in all. A bunch more wounded. We really don't know how many more were wounded. I've kind of seen varying reports all the way from 50 to 100. There's probably really no way to tell for sure because the information that kind of comes out of these places is so varied and scattered that we'll probably never know for sure. You'll probably get, a couple hundred reported injuries of people who, scratched their fingernail on a nail on the side of the door as they were coming up to see what happened and, got checked into the hospital for a wound. But it's looking like there were at least 10 Palestinians killed. And according to, I believe what I saw on CNN, they had a source in some sort of source, probably in the Red Crescent or something like that, who said pretty much all the Palestinians that were killed were shot in the head by snipers. They were presenting as if the Israeli butchers, they came in and just shot people in the head with snipers. But I want you to take a look at this video. Here's one video. Obviously, you don't get a lot of videos that come out of these military raids for, intelligence purposes, but just take a look at these Jeeps driving through. Look at what they're being hit with. Absolutely pelted with. I mean, I don't know if you could just imagine being in this situation in a city of over 100,000 people who hate your guts, coming in to do a raid to take out terrorists, and absolutely being swamped by all kinds of absolute madness. And the logical assumption is if you had a few Palestinians, so we're talking 7 more besides the terrorists, if that number is accurate, which we really don't know for sure. Let's just say for the sake of conversation, it was accurate. So in the midst of thousands and thousands and thousands of people attacking the Israeli military, if you have 7 more Palestinians who were shot in the head. Like I said, if that's true, the logical assumption is that these guys were armed, they were attacking the military straight out, and they were shot by snipers as an act of defense. That's kind of the only logical conclusion you can take away from this. Just seeing that, I mean, you're having armed military vehicles driving through crowds of thousands and thousands of people who are actively attacking you. If the military was interested in butchering unarmed civilians, there'd be no problem turning a machine gun on a crowd and killing hundreds of people. I mean, that would not be hard to do at all. Which leads us to this very, very sad video. From this user on Twitter, Nablus today, we will not turn our necks to the gallows of oppression. We will fight until the occupation ends, from the apartheid soldier to the fanatic settler, whatever the cost may be. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is the gallows of oppression right here. A military jeep driving through your city to arrest murderers, being chased and swamped by a crowd of people who would like to see them stopped. So the mainstream media and social media they've been setting up this narrative that Israel basically drove into the city of Nablus with the intention of butchering Palestinians. And I keep seeing this all over the place where people say, in what world is this okay? In what world is this morally justified? Why are more people not speaking out against this? But I kind of want to flip that question on its head. In what world is it morally justified for a country to not do this? When you have someone who is murdered in broad daylight in a premeditated attack by terrorists, by a terrorist organization, and those terrorists and that organization is still actively operating within your state, within your entity, those people are still at large. In what world is it morally acceptable to not hunt them down, to not arrest them, and to not bring them to justice? Israel not only had every right to do this, they actually have a moral obligation to do this. You can't just let murderers stay at large. You can't let justice go unpunished. You can't let terrorist organizations kill people and then continue to operate. And Israel and the Israeli intelligence did their due diligence. They hunted these guys down. They figured out where they were, and they planned a raid to arrest them. Now, that doesn't stop the backlash. There's been an absolute swarm of backlash that frankly really does not make any sense. I'm going to play a video by Ned Price, the spokesman for the State Department here in our beloved America, who gave his response to the situation.
First, the United States is extremely concerned by the levels of violence in Israel and the West Bank. Today in Nablus, at least 10 Palestinians, including both militants and civilian bystanders, were killed and over 100 injured during an Israel Defense Forces counterterrorism operation. We wish a speedy recovery to those injured, and our hearts go out to the families of the innocent bystanders who were killed today. We recognize the very real security concerns facing Israel. At the same time, we are deeply concerned by the large number of injuries and the loss of civilian lives. We had productive conversations in recent days with the parties and U.S. regional partners in support of efforts to prevent further violence. We are deeply concerned that the impact of today's raid could set back efforts aimed at restoring calm for both Israelis and Palestinians. Today's events further underscore the urgent need for both sides to work together to improve the security situation in the West Bank. We also call on all parties to desist from actions that inflame tensions, such as incitement to violence, evictions of families from their homes, demolitions, settlement advancements, and the legalization of outposts. Israelis and Palestinians, as we have consistently said, equally deserve to live in safety and security.
So that's great. We have the United States having productive conversations on telling Israel how to do their job with their security. And I really hope they had a good conversation with the terrorists who've been murdering Israelis and told them, hey, can we not do that? Can we not kill people? Is that a conversation that's been had? Some of this really, really, really is laughable, especially when you look at the kind of situation that Israel is facing with these terrorist organizations where they commit a terrorist attack toward Israeli civilians, and then they go and hide inside of their own civilian population centers because they know this will happen. This is exactly why those terrorists were in that home in the middle of Gaza to start with. I mean, in the middle of Nablus to start with. Because they knew that if the IDF carried out a raid to arrest them, this exactly would happen. You would have a swarm of thousands of civilians and also militants from the city of Nablus swarm the military, and one, it would make it very difficult for the military to do their job. And two, there would be civilian casualties. There would be casualties of all kinds of people, and they would be able to somehow claim the moral high ground, even though they are terrorists themselves, doing double duty, not only killing Israelis, but also being responsible for the deaths of their own countrymen. Seemingly in response to Israel taking out these terrorists inside of Nablus or Shechem, Hamas fired 6 rockets into Israel. If you're an organization or government who is legitimately outraged by Israel engaging civilians or militants or kind of whatever happened inside of Nablus or Shechem, if you do not think it's justified, your response to that situation, in what world is it morally justified to take missiles, set them up, and shoot them into civilian population centers? Unprovoked. Like, in what world is that okay just to take missiles, launch them up, and shoot them into Israeli population centers? And in what world is that morally acceptable? I mean, these are the two sides that, Israel and the Palestinians, these are kind of the two sides that, Ned Price and other people from the State Department and from other countries and the UN Secretary General like to set up as moral equivalents, as two kids having a squabble on a playground. Okay, be nice. Let's treat each other okay. Let's not escalate things. These are two very, very, very different situations. In one, Israel is responding to a terrorist attack, is taking out murderers, which as a side note, they weren't going in just to shoot. They weren't going in just to execute. Although personally, I wouldn't have a personal problem if you have terrorists who have blood, actual blood of killing people on their hands, if the military went in and just took them out. Israel wasn't doing that. They were going in to make an arrest. And in making that arrest, they were forced to kill the terrorists in self-defense. But in what world is it okay to respond to that, to respond to Israel taking out murderers by taking rockets and blasting them into civilian population centers? But yet this is what Hamas did. And we have this statement kind of in response by, let's see, by the Islamic Jihad organization. The enemy's attempt to separate the arenas will fail, for our people are united, and the battle is won, and our resistance is ready and alert, and we will not abandon its duties and obligations in responding to aggression wherever it occurs. Then there was somebody from Hamas who reiterated that the movement's patience is running out, and that it has proved the bombing for bombing equation. So I guess they're saying that in response to Israel taking out these terrorists, they're going to bomb civilian centers. Okay. Now we know where they stand. Now we know what moral equivalency we have here. Now we know, what two sides of this equation look like. On one hand, you have Israel carrying out justice to defend its civilians. On the other hand, you have Hamas, who is willing to just lob rockets into civilian population centers in response. These are the two sides we're dealing with. In response to the rockets coming out of Gaza, Israel struck a weapons munitions plant inside of Gaza that's probably actively manufacturing these rockets. So in response, Israel struck it with some sort of missile. And I want you to take a look at this tweet from the IDF. It has a map, a breakdown of where this munitions plant was. You can see here, circled in red or outlined in red is where these munitions were being actively manufactured. Right over here is a medical clinic. Right over here is a school, a police station, a mosque, and a hotel. Very, very close. You can see the school is 87 meters away. 87 meters away. 200 and something feet away from this munitions factory was. And thankfully, Israel has advanced technology to the point where they can do very, very precise strikes, where they can, have the intelligence to know, if there's kids on the ground, if there's kids close, and they can strike, these munitions factories and take them out, without injuring civilians, hopefully, which it seems like they did in this case. But one has to wonder, in an area where you have plenty of space where you can put these things, why on earth Hamas opted to put it right next to a school, right next to a hospital, right next to a hotel, right next to a police station. There's a reason for that. And that's exactly what we were just discussing. The two sides of this moral equation: Israel defending its citizens against murder and against terrorists, and Hamas actively carrying out the murders themselves. And in the process, not caring about their civilians at all. In fact, like we talked about with the Lion's Den terrorists hiding in the midst of a population center inside of Nablus or Shechem, Hamas doing the exact same thing. Taking their munitions factories and hiding them behind human shields. Behind human shields. This is exactly what this is. This is hiding behind civilians, human shields. And Israel took out the munitions plant because that's what they do. Because Israel will not stop defending its citizens, regardless of what anyone in the world says, regardless of the pressure that's put on them by the international community. God willing, that will not stop. There's a quote by Golda Meir, the former prime minister of the state of Israel, who said, "If we have a choice between being dead and pitied and being alive with a bad image, we'd rather be alive and have the bad image." May that always continue. So Israel, we are standing with you. As the nations, we're standing with you in your right to defend your citizens now and for always. Guys, that's all for today. Ask you to please subscribe to this channel if you like this content and get the word out. Share these videos anywhere you can. Send them to all your friends and anyone who would enjoy this content. As always, tune out the fake news and tune into what is actually happening here in the land of Israel. We'll be back every day of the week, Monday through Friday, with your direct connection to the heartland of Israel.